and welcome to the University of Law. As you can see in today's video, I've got a big stack of reviews. So as I mentioned, I am behind on my reviews, and I just thought it was getting to a point where there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 releases. And I thought rather than create 14 videos, I'm going to do a briefer video where I just kind of give you my thoughts in a nutshell for each of these releases. So, and also you'll be visibly be able to see the pile get smaller. So, starting with this one, James Robert McCrimmon. I'm doing it in chronological order for the Doctor. This is the latest Second Doctor box set. It's our Second Doctor set for 2023. It sees obviously the return of Jamie McCrimmon. There were some really lovely stories. I thought the opening was handled quite well, but for me it really got going with The Green Man. Was an excellent story, a nice little sequel to Seeds of Doom. And the final story really sets up the third box set really well, I feel. So it's called The Shroud. And yeah, there's a bit of Time Lord intrigue, and it almost felt like it could have been a Time War story with kind of, you know, the moral ambiguity of the Time Lords, and it looks like the Doctor and Jamie are kind of on the run again. So hopefully next year we kind of see, because it was quite a carefree box set for Doctor and Jamie. It kind of explained that this box set is where the third Doctor set Annihilators fits in. It fits in kind of between the first and second story here, so that they're having a bit of fun together again. And yeah, hopefully next year we start to pick up on some of the threads about the Dalek Emperor that were left hanging after the first set. So that's and also I really did prefer the cover art this year to last year. We've got the Doctor and Jamie on there. So yeah, that's the first set to review. Then we got In the Night, which is the Fifth Doctor set. So obviously it kind of carries on from the last set in that sort of era that's just post Snake Dance, which is great because we've just had it on Blu-ray box set. So nice to kind of explore that era around the same time the box set came out, funnily enough. The second story, I'll start with the first, Resistor, I really enjoyed. What was nice is it was one of those stories which kind of is just a nice short burst of story that's told really well. I mean, just kind of that 50-minute format across 2 parts. It was done really well managed, really great support cast, really well-rounded, intriguing, engaging characters, great setting, really well realised setting, something I didn't know much about, but it seems the author knew it was quite familiar with that setting. Also nice to see a bit of Tegan's background and family as well. And also seeing the Doctor in kind of that intrigue kind of environment that we don't usually see him in. It was very reminiscent of that War Doctor story with John Hurt, where he went back to the Cold War. The highlight though for me was the first story, The Pursuit of the Nightjar. It wasn't what I was expecting at all. It was absolutely brilliant, and I didn't have low expectations, but I just thought it was just going to be an average story. It was really good. What I liked about it was the whole. So 10 years ago there was a Fifth Doctor story for the 50th anniversary period called Prisoners of Fate, in which the Fifth Doctor kind of harks back to the First Doctor's first TARDIS, the TARDIS he had before he had the current TARDIS, and it kind of built on the lore of the First Doctor through the eyes of the Fifth Doctor. And this does it again by looking at one of the Doctor's heroes, one of the first stories the Doctor ever heard that inspired him to become the man that he became. So that was a really nice insight on the 6th anniversary into what made that First Doctor tick through the eyes of the Fifth Doctor. So really enjoyed that. I'm going to do these two together. So we had Purity Unleashed and Purity Unbound, finishing off the Purity saga. So Purity Unleashed was the first one. Broadway Belongs to Me was a really fun story by Matthew Sweet, some funny songs in there. Then we had a story called Purification by Chris Chapman, a really engaging tale. But for me the highlight was Time Burst, which was a really lovely kind of timey-wimey story. Felt a little bit like Mark of the Rani at times because of the setting. But yeah, it was really nice setup for, nice lead-in for this set, Purity Unbound. Girl in the Bubble was probably my favourite of the set actually. It really did pick up nicely from the previous box set and looked at the potential from that, and kind of looking at the ramifications, and the Doctor and Mel realising the ramifications of that, and it kind of carried on through the next 2 stories as well, exploring the themes of this whole saga in new and interesting ways, coming together in a nice little story which I'd say Toby Haydock did a really great performance in. In fact, all the guest cast did an amazing performance in as well, and it hopefully leaves us ready for more adventures with the Doctor, the 6th Doctor, Mel, and Hebe going forward. So that's the 2nd, 5th and 6th Doctor stuff since my last reviews. We've now got some 8th Doctor sets. So the 8th Doctor's been quite busy this year, as you can see. That's 4 sets alone since my last review, so the last couple of months. Plus, he did the Once and Future release. Plus, he's got a box set, 2 box sets coming out next month, and he did the box set at the start of the year for the Time War. I'll do the second one quickly, which is Doomsday. I'll go over this properly when I do a proper review of the final hours of Doomsday. But looking specifically at, well, the whole set was fun. I loved the first story because obviously it was all about my favourite Doctor Who story, which was the Daleks' Master Plan. The Silence one was really clever. It was a really clever story. Obviously the Jackie Tyler one was just fun. Great use of the dynamic there. But then the crowd was really great as well. Really great concept of the crowd, and also looking at Doom through the eyes of the Doctor. It's the only time we've actually had her up against an actual incarnation of the Doctor. I'll talk about it more in my review, but obviously it was the first time we properly heard Doom played by Suze Kempner. Usually it had been comics or books. It's amazing how quickly you kind of just bought the character. Bring on, it was just this box set. So that was a really fun set. And what was great about this one actually was we got cover art for each individual story as well. The Robots, so this obviously finishes a 6 volume epic. John Coleshaw really, got a great performance along with Nicola Walker and Claire Rushbrook in this set. Obviously the highlight has to be the final story, which links really nicely back into the Escape from Kaldor story from right back actually in the second Ravenous set. So it links right back there. I think it's Ravenous. Yeah, so that links in quite nicely, and there's some great moments with the Eighth Doctor reflecting on Susan and obviously where he was when he first met Liv, and he doesn't mention it outright, but I guess it's reflecting on what happened to Alex at the end of the events of To the Death. Then Paternoster Gang was a really lovely opening to this new sort of series. I think the first, if I remember, the first one I think was the Victorian one, which was a really fun story, like a Victorian musical, I should say, because they're all Victorian, aren't they? The musical was really great. Second one had a nice bit of intrigue to it, sort of like a race across London, trying to solve problems. The highlight, of course, being the last one, which had a twist I didn't see coming about how there was like a Miss Havisham character. It turns out that there's an imposter out and about, and obviously it looks like that's going to be what's going to be moving forward. Trespassers, is the name of the new series. So I guess there are trespassers, and it's someone pretending to be the Doctor and doing things in his name. So that leaves the door open that maybe we will get more of McGann in later Paternoster Gang sets, but it was certainly nice to see him witnessing the marriage of Vastra and Jenny, although it wasn't actually Vastra. It's one of the trespassers. So that's a nice little cliffhanger for the next one. Audacity, probably one of my favourite Cybermen stories ever. On audio, I find with the Cybermen, even on television and audio, it can be tricky sometimes. I find I either really love them or I'm impartial to them. This one I really loved. It was a great kind of setup for Avenger of the Cybermen. Some really great look at sort of time travel, and yeah, there's some twists I just didn't see coming. That was great. That was the second story. The first one was also really fun. That introduced our new companion Audacity. Of course, the highlight for me was discovering that this is set right during the Charlie Pollard era, because they had mentioned that this was going to be long before Lucy Miller, etc. That's what the press release said. Long before Mary, long before Dark Eyes, long before Lucy Miller. But they never mentioned about Charlie Pollard. Now we assumed from the costume, because it looks like it's his comic strip costume, that this was going to be pre-Charlie, but actually no, it's not. It's bang in the middle of the Charlie Pollard era. So it's kind of just great to see her back, and she will be in the next set, which is a nice Christmas set, which hopefully I'll be doing a whole review on when it comes out shortly. Then we move on to our Time War audios. So we've got the Gallifrey War Room. I think these sets are getting stronger and stronger with each one. I won't go into detail in each story, but for me the highlights really were looking at sort of Narvin and Leela and this kind of rebellion that's brewing, and also looking at some of the distrust between the members of the War Room. I love the idea, the concept of this gateway where where Leela and Narvin can talk across time and space and give each other warning and help. There's a great story early on which was about the Time Lords and the Daleks and the Rebellion all trying to outdo each other diplomatically, and that was a really fun story. The highlight for me though was the finale one, where all of them are being played by Alistra. That was a really lovely story to wrap it all up, and it kind of leaves them where basically they're all in her debt, moving to the third box set, which will be an interesting dynamic to look into. And then we've got the Once and Future set. So I have already reviewed past lives. Since I reviewed it, we've had this lovely sleeve. I know some people have had issues with the sleeves. I've had no issues with any of mine. They look good, but apparently they're sending out replacements. I think mine's in the post at the moment with the next two. So I think we get replacements, but to be honest, I didn't need them. I felt the first one was very much a nostalgia ride. It had lots of fun elements in it. I've mentioned this before. It was a very fun story. It had kind of all the key ingredients of Doctor Who in it. It took, I think, when I heard the preview, the 15-minute preview and Big Finish, I thought there's so much going on here. How on earth is it all going to come together? It actually came together really well. But this is more of a pick and mix of Doctor Who. It's more of the Five Doctors kind of celebration, which I loved because it has all those different elements and fun. But actually, there's a bit more meat in terms of the next story, The Artist at the End of Time, which is more of a kind of Day of the Doctor, I guess, style story, which really explores the Doctor and who he is, and it does it through his his meeting of his future self, the curator, and looking at who the Doctor is through the eyes of who he becomes looking back, and the whole idea of kind of everything ending and trying to preserve that, and kind of looking at who the Doctor is at his essence. So it was a great way to just sort of stop and pause in the middle of the anniversary and just think about who the character is. Because it came with this lovely booklet, which has got a poster inside, which has got the curator, the Fifth Doctor, and the Doctor's daughter as well. So that was quite fun to have. Obviously in its slip cover as well. Nearly at the end. Then this is probably my favourite actually of the Once and Future stories. Beginnings for War is very much a Time War story. It's got the General back, Davros back, and what's really fun about this one is it basically picks up Davros' story from Gallifrey Time War 4, and I really love seeing that kind of that next piece in the story, and also just seeing him up against Sylvester McCoy's version of the Doctor. This was a really just fun piece of Time War mythology, really kind of carrying that story along, because I've loved all the Rangers and how they cross-pollinate and how they build this story going forward. And again, it comes with a poster, quite cinematic, and obviously it's got the Daleks, the General, the Seventh Doctor, Davros. It's a nice little poster to commemorate that. The General, of course, celebrating his 10th anniversary this year, having made his debut in The Day of the Doctor in 2013. Then we come to, this came out last week. This was a great box set, The War Master Rogue Encounters. So I'm trying to remember which one was which. The last one was my favourite. It was the Professor Yana one. So well played, so well written. I thought Yana and the whole Utopia storyline was so engaging when Russell Davies wrote the original script, and kind of the whole idea of humanity at the end of time and what they're up to. This really kind of was a lovely prequel to that, and I hope they do a whole kind of series on it. It was fantastic. The Sublime Port was excellent. Who is the Master Afraid of? Or the Master is Afraid of Biddus Manger from Torchwood. That was a really great story, and there's a great kind of concept at the end about what the Sublime Port is. That was really interesting. Although there's a bit of a cliffhanger. I wonder, it didn't lead into Alone, so I wonder where that's going to pick up later. And then we had two great stories in addition. Manhunt was the one with the set in the 90s with the alien abduction story. That was a really engaging story. Showed the most kind of at its most manipulative, and there are other species looking out for the Time Lords. But then Runtime was also a real favourite, really great strong story to kick the set off, which was all about the Master, and it kind of took history full circle in that the Master is saving a planet during the Time War because it's the first planet he will ever destroy back earlier in his life, so he needs to ensure that the timelines are saved for himself. He's protecting his own timeline. That brings us to the final one, you'll be pleased to hear, which is Travel in Hope. Again, as with all the Ninth Doctor stories, they get their own CDs. I won't go into all of them. But the Butler did it. It was a really fun story. It was nice putting the Ninth Doctor into that setting because he really does stick out as a character. Then below there was a fun sort of story, which again, I mean, his performance throughout all of the sets was absolutely fantastic, but they get stronger and stronger. The highlight though, of course, for me was Run, which sees him not only see the Cat of the Icebergs, but also Alpha Centauri. They had a great rapport, him and Alpha Centauri. I hope there's more to come with that dynamic. It was a nice prequel to those Peladon stories, kind of the origin story for Alpha Centauri. yeah, and there's lots of intrigue and commentary. And yeah, it was a really fun story. Yeah, these stories just get better and better, and he just gets stronger and stronger. I think the writers and him just together, it just snowballs and they get better and better. And every time I say it, each time I say, well, you know, it can't get better than this, and they just do. So that's it. We've run through quite a few releases there. So have you listened to any of these? Let me know your thoughts about each of the stories or any of the stories in the comments below. What was your favourite? And what are you most looking forward to? We've got a month and a half left, approximately, of 2023, this big anniversary year. What are you looking forward to the most? Do let me know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Look forward to speaking to you soon.